So let's have everyone introduce themselves. Now, Colin, we've already met you. I'm going to come back and ask you a question in a minute. Yeah. But let's start with Fredric, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so Fredric Sundin, I'm head.
Speak into the mic.
Can you hear me now?
Oh yes.
Loud, yeah. So Fredric Sundin, I'm heading up the network development for Vodafone UK. Been with Vodafone for the past 8 years. Before that, spent most of my time with Ericsson for about 20 years in basically on all the different continents around the world.
Fantastic. And from your perspective, digital transformation, you're going to be talking about digital transformation in a couple of panels, aren't you? But you're going to give us all the good stuff now. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the intention.
Okay, great. Okay, Beatriz, if you'd introduce yourself to the audience and tell them a little bit about how you're involved in this area.
Yes, thank you. My name is Beatriz Ortega. I'm business developer. And what is it, okay? So I'm listening to the customer, trying to adapt or product or solution or services to the current projects that you are managing there, okay? So specifically focuses in EMEA, in telco vertical, okay?
Okay, and if you'd speak into the mic a bit more as well, that would be great for the rest of the panel. Now, Colin, I'm going to come back to you now. You brought up all sorts of juicy topics, and you made it, I mean, you didn't say it was easy, but you've achieved quite a few things, but I'm sure the road was not easy. And I'm reminded, of course, Colin has actually been at BT for quite a few years. It's been 19 years that you've been at BT, and there have been a few stints in other parts of BT. You were at Global before, and of course this is now a merged organization. You've been at Wholesale. So I'm just wondering if you could just give us a little sense of what's been most difficult as you get to this, this status now of nirvana is where you're getting at, right?
A couple of observations. Well, last year they stopped calling me new boy, which was always good. A new person.
Really?
I think the thing with telcos is the complexity. And I think we all know, for those who work in telcos, is you have just this vast amount of complexity, whether it be the physicals, the optical layer, everything from silted ducts to point-to-point microwaves, every type of technology that you can think of to reconcile and innovate against. And one of the challenges we have is timed competency, and really to be effective in the telco function. Challenges was how do you have an innovative spirit and forward-looking and bring in outside thinking, but also be able to reconcile all the complexity that is underneath the hood at the same time.
I mean, I took the question from the gentleman who was asking about legacy. I think it's a very, very important question. And the digital transformation that you spoke about in your presentation was, in fact, a lot of what we need to talk about for the panel, which is all about putting the power in the customer's hands through things like self-service, self-care. We've got these fancy things called network slicing coming. Is that really going to happen? I think we should perhaps debate that premise. Is really for, let me start with Beatriz actually. Do you really believe this premise about digital transformation is really starting with the customer, or more about the telco? Because Colin spent a lot of time saying it's all too complicated, and that's what we need to focus on first.
Yeah, I think at the end, it's the customer is a bit centric, okay? But when we are talking about just to improve the efficiency, be more agile, just improve the internal operation, really we are working for this customer. When you can predict the one ISO that the customer will have, when you can just promote a specifically offer to this customer, really the customer is there, okay? So I don't want to say one thing or the other thing. I think we have to balance. Considering that everything, even the internal project that you are managing, are just responding to the customer at the end. Okay? Mm-hmm. It's true that we can work in order to do more efficient the engagement with the customer, the relationship. Okay, and we are in a very good moment in order to introduce generative artificial intelligence or really automate as much as possible the relation, work 24/7. Okay, with chatbots. Yesterday, for instance, I had one issue with one e-commerce, and I was answering at one a.m., okay? So, and the answer was quite good. Before it was not possible. So really we are increasing and improving the relationship and the engagement with the customer. But we don't need to choose between one thing and the other thing, the both,
Okay.
and the balance between the both.
Yeah, I mean, Fredric, you're working on the network aspect more than anything else, but
I think, the digital transformation is much more holistic than just the customer journey, I think. I mean, it stretches across the whole network, how we plan and build and operate the network, how we optimize it. But also, I think, to be able to enable digital transformation and be very successful in it, there's more transformations you need to be doing. It's a people transformation, culture transformation that is a must, I think. In many cases, you need to go through an organizational transformation. You need to be structured and organized in a different way. You need to have different skills and capabilities within the organization. I think you need to transform the network so that we talked about that legacy equipment is holding you back. So you need to rationalize and modernize to enable that. And the processes that you have internally also need to be transformed. And I don't think that digital transformation will be successful without the other three areas.
without the other aspects. And I don't know if we've talked, I wasn't here earlier today, but I don't know how much we've talked about the actual, what's the optimal structure for the service provider. Now, Beatriz doesn't have a view on this right now, maybe impartially she does, but we have two service providers here who've been through certain amounts of transformation. However, you don't have a digital division. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but it's, some people are told that a digital division is the only way you can transform. BT, you don't have a digital division per se. You have an X division. You have Division X, right?
Well, we have Jaime Meta, who is our Chief Digital Officer, and BT Digital, which is one of the two powerhouses. So we don't have a digital division in BT Business, but we have two powerhouses for transformation that we rely on that also serve our consumer division and OpenReach and our group functions.
So do we believe that it's really important to have a separate digital division? Is that important? Does the audience want to comment on this? Hands up. Do you need a digital division to be a successful telco going forwards to transform? Okay, we've got a few hands. Maybe a quarter of you believe that should be the case. So everyone else has gotten it wrong. Okay. We'll worry about that in a moment. Now, we've talked about various challenges that, you need to have a balance of network transformation, organizational transformation. I'm actually reminded of something that Colin mentioned a few times, because I've come across this as well, I bet Beatriz has too, is whether we can actually if we can operationally change, is the procurement department able to adapt to change? And that's either buying or selling, whether you're trying as a salesperson to get a deal approved, or if you're trying to execute on that deal. Beatriz, do you want to talk a little bit about that as well, or do the other guys want to talk about it?
Okay, I don't know.
I mean, I think we all should. I think you've all got a different perspective on it.
So about the procurement, do you mean just
Yeah.
When we are trying to sell the procurement, of course, are very, I want to say efficient, or just looking for the efficiency, okay? So really, it's not like before that the technology was just have the last chance, the last word. So really, you need to convince now the procurement table, okay? So really, you have to go there just with business case, with TCOs, really just trying to say that really the technology changes that you are adopting, for instance, automation, really will be just with the return of investment for them, okay? So really, they are an essential stakeholders in the decisions, okay, I think.
But what if we got an automation? Sorry, go on.
No, I agree. I think I don't see procurement as a challenge or a blocker.
Really?
I think that they will do what makes sense for the business. If you pull together the right business case, they will all support it. I think what I've seen sometimes when we talk about digital transformation is that we have a lot of know-how in terms of what we think it can do. But sometimes people struggle to really pull together the benefits. What does it mean in terms of money? Am I going to save 1 million, or am I going to save 10 resources? Or, and people don't really want to bet their name on it always. But once an accurate business case is pulled together and those benefits has been evaluated, I've always had support from procurement.
Perhaps you have more enlightened procurement that understands different KPIs. Colin, do you have anything to add?
I'm going to start. Yes, I do. Perhaps be slightly controversial on this, but start from the business model and the impact of why procurement needs to change. I think over the last number of years, if you look at the share prices of service providers relative to other industry technology providers that consume the service provider services, there's been an issue around value and attaching value to those services. And one of the other challenges for service providers is we're a very capital-intensive industry to build out. Yeah. And those return on the capital investment can be quite long return investment cycles. If you look at the copper networks that we've got in the ground, some of them have been put 100 years ago in the ground. So they've definitely been amortized and been delivering a very high margin over the period. But then that becomes the kind of the opium for service providers, though, is you have the legacy technology that delivers particularly good margins.
That's right.
And revenues. But if you sit on those and milk them for too long, you will have missed the inflection point on the lower margin new disruptive technologies where you're having to put a lot of CapEx in up front and making some very deep, hard business cases. So where procurement comes into this is then you need to find ways to back off sort of shared risk reward models to do the heavy lifting, to transform and make that, to be brave enough to rip the Band-Aid off and make that leap and move forward. And procurement is a real important strategic partner to have those conversations.
Well, I was going to give you another example, and I think that's a very valid point. But one of the things that you were talking about was network as a service. Now, that is, in theory, that is a move to a consumption-based model, not a 3-year contract, not a 1-year contract, not a predictable cost. Now, to a procurement department that's trying to approve a deal, I would imagine that even though that might be better for the environment because you only consume and pay for what you use, the procurement department in the telco might not be too happy with the movement to that type of environment. Not only that, but there's a level of self-service as well, that the customer, the enterprise customer in this case, is buying that service, on a liquid basis. I would imagine that some procurement departments see their death in such services going forwards with the level of automation. What do you think? And Beatriz, I think that Red Hat is facilitating some of that too, right?
We are trying to do that, yes. I don't know if someone from procurement is here, okay, but we are trying to facilitate. We need just to be creative, okay, in order to present different models, different commercial models, and just in order to look for just advantage, not only in the first aspect that sometimes we can see. We need to look for just how is going the innovation, how will be in 3 years, how will be just considering just the business and other areas in the company, not just pure technology. So we need just to be more creative. That's right.
Yeah, and I think, so I think we're moving towards a more dynamic, in terms of business models and so on, right?
Yeah, if we're trying to be more sustainable, right, then as a service consumption should be the way forwards.
Exactly, and I think, depending on what year it is, there's different priorities. 1 year it's CapEx, next year it's OpEx.
Yes,
then it's CapEx, then it's OpEx. Then, so I think as we went on this journey, and we started to realize that, it's moving much more into the PaaS and SaaS and so on, right? I don't think that we as an industry were fully prepared on that. Hey, we're actually changing now from a CapEx model into an OpEx model, and we had not counted on that. So that when we did that transition a couple of years ago, it started. It was a bit of a surprise to everybody, to be honest, and it was immediately a challenge. So that you had to replan your whole financial approach to things and strategies.
Yeah, or maybe you're motivated by return on invested capital. I mean, there is some, if you actually do the numbers, there are some unpleasant findings to be. I'm not going to get into them now, but automation should change some of these dynamics. Have you had some unpleasant surprises or good surprises from automation, from either network or service automation?
Yeah, I think we've seen positive things across the board, to be honest. I mean, we focus a lot on automating, repetitive tasks, high volumes, type of things, right? And that has brought us quite many benefits. I mean, we've been able to free up the workforce to focus on more complex things, high value tasks, and so on. The tasks in itself, when there was a lot of manual work behind it, always, well, not always, but sometimes led to human mistakes, normal.
Sure.
So we managed to shorten the delivery time significantly. The accuracy of first time right has improved a lot. And for us, that has brought better stability to the network, less customer complaints, less tickets, better performance and things. So, quite a lot.
So you're generally quite positive. Colin, from your perspective, what have you seen? Let's focus here more on the service portfolio. How have you seen automation and AI, we can't avoid that as well, changing the type of service portfolio in surprising or unsurprising ways, or,
A couple of learnings on AI, because we haven't gone 5 minutes without talking about AI, so
it's impossible.
Probably
not
time.
Tonight.
I think you made a comment earlier in the conversation about processes. What we found so far with major automation, and also now we're finding the same with AI, is we're finding that actually we could have saved a lot if we just fixed the process in the first place. And if there was one piece of advice I could give to folks who are just starting this journey, is get your process experts and your people who are in the field who know exactly what unnecessary step in the process is there. Put them at the heart of the transformation project and put them in charge.
It's an old-fashioned statement, but time and motion study is not such a bad idea, watching people how they work.
Yeah, I think it's a must. I mean, I think when we started the journey, you kind of look at the process and you try to automate it, and you say, "Oh, this isn't working."
It was a crap process to begin with, right?
Steps and
fail faster.
Yeah, exactly. So radical simplify the processes. And otherwise, it's going to be much more difficult to go on the journey, I think.
Definitely, because I think that technology is only 30% of the iceberg, okay? Just the rest is the people that you were saying that you cannot see. But the process, okay, you need to just to be open in order to change your process, in order to, because of course, if you are working in the operation, and I was, okay, so you're trying to maintain the status quo, don't change nothing, at least as possible, okay? So, but when you are automating, you are just changing the process. You have to be open in order to introduce this changing and to automate as much as possible. Sometimes the operational team is considering that they are on rates, okay? Because if they are not just doing repeating the tasks, they will not be useful for the company. And it's not. The human talents will be just in other complex activities or in other complex use cases, okay? And not about repeating tasks, another one, okay? So definitely 160% will be the technology that is there, but the 80% is people and processes.
The people, and we can't walk away from that. So, and I always ask this question because I think it's always very relevant. Is really what skills we should be trying to hire in? Is it just programmers? Do programmers have the life experience, the operational experience required for the challenge in the business? I don't know. What sort of people should we be looking for?
I think we're talking about transformation.
Absolutely,
not just digital, but it's bigger than that. We talked about processes, people, and so on. Do you need to have certain skills and capabilities? Yes. You need to recruit a certain percentage of your workforce with certain specialisms, SMEs. But I think it's even more important to recruit people with the right attitude and values and behaviors.
Which means people who don't have any telco background. Is that what you're implying? I'm wondering.
I think So we've done that quite a lot recently, right? And it creates a very dynamic workforce. Not just
Examples, come on.
not just from a gender perspective.
You're hiring artists or jugglers or, I mean, you
They
know.
come from medical industry, construction, build, forest, everything, right? And they bring in a lot of insights into us, and they ask all of the questions that no one have asked for 10 years.
So they're looking at problems differently, and that's the important
very
point.
differently, right?
Okay.
And that brings innovations to the table. So why are you doing things like that? Oh, I haven't really thought about it. Yeah, because over where I used to work, we did it very differently. And we're like, oh, that's a good idea, right? So you get the different mindset of people with different cultures, different backgrounds, different experiences. And I think that's needed since you need to go on a digital transformation, a network transformation, organizational transformation, processes and things.
Definitely.
And Beatriz, would you agree? Mix it up a bit?
Definitely. Here, really, in Red Hat, we are considering. Of course, we are selling just solution with product, okay? But really, just the engagement with the employees, with the customer that we use, that kind of thing, is essential, okay? We are coming more from the IT area, and I think the network has a lot of opportunities to adopt just the agility, new methodologies, CI/CD, that are already working in IT, but we are implementing, okay, in the network, but we need just to have more experience about that, okay? So, of course, when you are just attracting talent, okay, you need to be focused in these new areas, because now everything will be cloud native or CI/CD, or you need to work in different ways that traditionally we work with the legacy that we had, okay? But at the same time, you have to adopt just the good experience that perhaps in the same company you have in other areas, okay? And of course, just like you say, other sectors, in the most of the case, can be just useful in order to adopt different ways to think, okay?
Yeah. Colin, from your perspective, to what degree do you, can you think of examples where perhaps BT has, driven new skills adoption because of a customer has said, or suggested this, or it's demanded new types of behavior?
Yep.
I think that would be interesting to explore a bit, because customers are changing what they require, right? So.
Yeah. If you think about it as a V model over the years, over time, what we drove was that the thesis originally was smaller groups, centers of excellence, of competency, that if you did certain tasks, but only those tasks, many, many times, you'd get good at it and you'd be faster at it. So what it drove was, in our general cohort, and I believe other telcos as well, is deeper and deeper specialization, but very narrow.
Very narrow.
And in big telcos, you have these very large cohorts of people, and you have these very deep specialists. But the reality is, with automation and AI and these other tools, that what we're hoping is that allows a lot of the hard work around fault domain isolation and incident management, frees up the time of these people, and therefore the V of the skill set is, because we have this tension in the rope right now, is that still traditional contracts with customers are based on SLAs that are based on platform availability.
Yeah, they're the wrong,
it's the wrong
language,
KPIs.
Wrong
So
language,
the skill sets need to follow the KPIs, because the expectation is at an individual level of end-user experiential outcomes, business outcomes.
Business outcomes.
So the more that we can free our skill set, so the thesis is the V is coming back up to be more generalists, more rounded, who understand they're still experts, but they understand the people who can actually translate. And we want to have our people spending more time based on consultative conversations on the problem behind the incident. And the outcome, ensuring that they deliver outcomes based on their needs.
And that makes perfect sense, but that implies a vertical industry capability and knowledge, right? Is that correct?
It starts to go that way, because there is different vertical outcomes, but we believe that there's still a middle ground of horizontal journey before you fully verticalize that are often common to all vertical industries still, around the brilliant basics, But you're absolutely right, then you get to outcomes. The challenge we have often is the head of networks in, say, an investment bank struggles to equate what their trading units' outcomes are and convert them back to their supplier conversations.
That is specifically what their job is within the enterprise. That is their job, to do that translation.
You would think that.
Yeah.
But when you get back to the procurement discussion, it's like how much availability is that particular router uptime
We're
in
back
the contract.
to the 5 nines conversation.
And then you've got an incident bridge on a Monday morning where you've got 20 different suppliers on an instant call, and the poor customer's there going, well, I'm green, I'm green, I'm green, I'm green. And yet the customers, users are still suffering. So we need to change that and bring the V back up so that we have a set of people who are prepared to lean in, but we need the automation and the tools to allow us and the power to do that.
And how much, yes, please add.
Yeah, I wanted to say it's very interesting, okay, because one of the challenges that we can see when we are just offering or implementing just automation is just connect the business with the automation. The use case should be just managed by the business looking for the automation tasks that we have to do, okay? So automation is not only one technology tool, okay? So it'll be one company tool in order to look for just the efficiency and sometimes the business targets that they are looking for, okay? So when you are discovering the use cases, not only the technical solution or the operational solutions will be there, just be the profitability or just the specific strategy in the business should be part of the
Okay,
of the
well,
way.
yeah, we're discovering even more complexity that we need to deal with, but that's the reality. Let me just go back to this point on enterprises. I spend a lot of time with enterprises, and they're telling me that what they really want is what I'd call radical transparency. They want 360-degree observability of all of their digital assets and their physical assets, and they would pay for that type of capability, particularly if they didn't have to navigate through, 8, 10, 15 different systems to have that observability. Are we ever going to get there? Because I think whoever gets there first will be able to make a lot of money. Do you want to comment on that? Is that...
Yeah, no, I think it's important that customers has visibility and traceability, and they should also be able to do certain changes themselves.
That's right. How much control do you want to give them?
I think it's a mix. The balance, it's a key here, I guess, in terms of where you draw the lines. Probably not go all in, but start in small steps and take it from there, because they might make changes that actually make things worse, right? If they don't understand exactly how the product or how the network works as well, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's almost like, when we draw an AI framework, it almost needs to be a framework around this as well, to say, okay, this is things that we can actually give full access to, full visibility, they can play around with it. It's not really going to have a major impact on how they experience the services. No, these are things they should not be touching. Right?
My observation of self-serve is it's great on a service by service level, but no one said the word orchestration. But orchestrating across different services, that's not happening at this point. Colin, I don't know if you want to add.
Yeah.
You said all sorts of lovely things about SLAs and control, customer.
Well, I'll start with my plumber hat on this one. Is start with, to get to observability, first of all, you need to master telemetry. And telemetry is essentially a tax on the network. And as long as we continue in an industry, and there is convergence here, and a division where there's a CISO and a head of networks, and they all have their own tool sets. And all those tool sets have their own databases, and they all have their own data lakes. And each one of those data lakes wants the same data off the poor CPE end device, and they're all pulling the net flow twice. A properly configured net flow polling is 7% tax on the network bandwidth, right? And so if your network team's doing that, and then your security team's doing that, all of a sudden, you're adding intense amount of, you're not getting the value out.
I think he's giving a politician's answer to say he doesn't want to be accountable.
No.
I think that's what he's saying.
No, I couldn't agree with you more that customers are asking for full stack observability and are willing to pay for it more. The devil in the detail is to master that the customer's environments, there's multiple departments of that customer, and in our own departments, to master the data itself, right? And what you're doing with that data and gaining insight out of it. Because the reality is that there are multiple systems, often with a little bit of overlap, and they all have one piece of the jigsaw puzzle.
Yes, they do. They do. I'm actually, I know we're almost running out of time, but I'd just like to throw out a quick question to everyone, and this relates to something that you talked about, Colin, in your speech. You were talking about data in motion, the sovereignty of data in motion.
Yep.
And how that was something that, you know, was an issue we all needed to deal with, and we probably need automation to do that.
Yep.
And in this context of automation and AI, just a quick fact, you know, in my organization, Omdia, we assume, well, we believe that already a third of traffic on global networks is AI enriched. Whether it's AI originated, you know, it's certainly going to grow, and it's going to become 2/3 of traffic, at least over the next 5 years. Now, if that becomes the case, and we have generative AI, and that various consumers and businesses, you know, business customers are creating the traffic, we've got different issues with sovereignty. How the hell do we do it? How do we deal with that, you know, from a network automation perspective? And how much would that be worth, managing the security of that, the performance of that traffic, all of that? Surely that's a way forwards for the telco industry to survive and thrive. Is that correct or not? Do you want to think about it? Fredric, it should be good for you.
Start here.
I don't know, you are the telco, okay? So I think we need to control, or we can do a lot of things, or the telco can do a lot of things. For instance, just select the traffic for a specific and individual offering, okay? So
no human control all of that traffic.
Yeah, that's right. It's not a broadcast.
Monitor that.
If I'm receiving some offering for football, of course, it's not the target, so I'm not answering. So perhaps just control the traffic that will be just necessary for the individuals, okay? So that was one. And the edge computing is another one, okay? So more and more traffic will be generated in the border.
So more investment in the edge is going to be necessary.
That's right.
More automation.
That's right. So
it'll feed itself. The AI and automation will generate more AI and automation traffic. Okay.
And of course, we need to introduce artificial intelligence, or I think will be valid, okay, in order to predict how will be the customer patterns or the profiles, the traffic patterns, okay, and just be ready in advance, okay, just adjust as much as possible the resources that you will need. Considering, for instance, in Spain is very typical the migration. So it's during the summer, all the people are in the coast, okay? Yes, no one is in the center, and in the winter it's in the other way. So
edge computing by the beach.
That's right.
Basically.
That's right. So you can predict as much as possible that kind of circumstances, and really just listening what is the customer behavior, and just work with the network in order to anticipate the resources.
Well, someone's going to make some money out of that. Colin, do you have any thoughts?
A very well-known CIO of a multinational company who is in 100 countries of that company, who I'll save their blushes, told me they had a phrase. They said regulators hunt in packs, and you know, they all go to this well-known conference in Sardinia, and in one country, if they have one idea, very soon those ideas will metastasize between other countries. And you know, we've seen that happen in Asia and also in Europe. And we know that data sovereignty for motion has already been passed in Switzerland in certain vertical industries. So it is a reality already. And you're seeing other aspects in other countries around the world. So The other thing is that they don't necessarily understand the cost to CIOs or companies, the technological cost of these regulatory things, but it is moving forward. So for us, we made a big bet to try to be relevant. We also know that trying to solve for these problems with just an overlay, you can't really do it without solving it at an underlay level.
Okay.
So in some ways, it's an opportunity as a threat, as well as a threat, if you're brave enough to invest to be relevant in the next phase.
Okay, but automation is definitely part of that.
Oh, it won't be possible without it. Our little monkey brains couldn't do it.
Okay, now I know we're almost out of time, so I think let's do just a final, what I would like each of the panelists just briefly to tell us is just a final piece of advice on achieving digital transformation, just one quick pithy piece of advice, leveraging network automation or not. What would your one quick piece of advice, Colin? And we'll go through the rest of the...
Oh, goodness. Start 4 years ago.
Okay, yeah. Great. Beatriz.
It's not a waste, okay? Automation is a need. No. Okay, so it's impossible to reach the goals that the telco has in front without automation.
So suck it up, accept it. Okay, great. Okay, Fredric?
Simplify, simplify, simplify.
Simplify, simplify. Okay, I think these are all excellent pieces of advice. And with that, I'd like to say thank you very much to the panel. Round of applause to the panel. And we'll move on.